All right, today in the 4x4, we are taking 4 minutes at 4 o'clock to take a deeper look at the rough market for renters. Rent prices continue to rise right here in the Bay Area. The latest numbers from Zillow and Zumper show the median rent price for a one-bedroom unit in San Francisco is now $3,500. In San Jose, you're going to pay about $2,100 and $1,900 in the city of Oakland. With the prices so high and demand so intense, it is hard to even get an apartment, let alone an affordable one. So today we are talking about what you need to know before you sign a lease. Joining us is Claire Johnson-Raba from Bay Area Legal Aid, or Bay Legal. Claire, thank you for taking the time. And Tommy Avicoli-Mecca from the Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco. Thank you, Tommy. Sure. Right off the bat, I got to ask you, what's your reaction to the numbers you're seeing in regards to $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month rent out there in San Francisco? Because Tommy, you live there.
Yes, it's absolute insanity. It's immoral as far as I'm concerned. There should be a way that government can stop these rents from getting this high because people can't afford it unless you have a whole lot of money. It's just not fair to people.
And at Bay Area Legal Aid, we work primarily with low-income tenants. And so the rents in San Francisco are pushing low-income folks further and further out to the edges of the Bay Area. So we're working a lot more with the suburban poor in the outlying areas in Contra Costa County and in Santa Clara County. We see people getting shoved out of the urban markets.
And Claire and Tommy, I mean, those are for one-bedroom apartments.
Yes.
You're talking $2 grand, $3 grand. Okay, so let's say you finally find a place that you can afford, you like it, and you're about to go into a lease. That's a legal document. What are some of the things people don't think about? They're just excited because I just went through the process. Hey, I got the place, let me sign right now. And you don't think about all the particulars. So Claire, what are some of the things you should think of before you actually sign on the dotted line?
Well, Tommy can speak a little bit more about this in San Francisco, but one of the things you should know is whether or not your unit is rent control or if you're in a just cause jurisdiction. So Tommy can speak about the resources in San Francisco, but if you're in an area that's not San Francisco, you can go to your local municipal website and check on the resources for tenants. And that way you know how protected you are. You know how much your landlord can raise your rent and once you're in that lease. And if the landlord does raise the rent more than the ordinance in your area, you know that that's a violation. And if you're in a just cause jurisdiction, that means you can't be evicted without a just cause. And that's a very important thing to know because rental protections vary throughout cities in the Bay Area.
So Tommy, in San Francisco?
In San Francisco, we do have rent control. One of the things I think people should do is they should check to see if that apartment is under rent control. And you can do that real easily by Googling SF Parcel. It gives you a property map. You type in the address, scroll down on the right side to the very end. It'll tell you when the building was built. If it was built before '79, it's under rent control. It'll tell you how many units. If it's more than one unit, it's under rent control. So it has to be built before '79 and have more than one unit to be under rent control. But you should check that to see if you are protected. You should also check there, for instance, if you're moving into a single family dwelling, but there's an in-law apartment in the back, and you're moving into the in-law apartment, and you go to the property map, and it says one unit, and you know there's two, that means your unit is probably illegal. So you should know that up front, that your unit's illegal. Okay. You still have the same rights as any other tenant, but there's the risk that if that unit got reported, there's the risk that you could get evicted for a just cause, a demolition eviction. So it's useful to check that.
So if I own a coffee shop, I can charge a cup of coffee $3, $4, $5. If the customer doesn't want to buy it, doesn't have to buy it. The same for a landlord. What's wrong with someone being able to charge $3,000, $4,000 for an apartment?
It leaves a lot of people out, as we're seeing now. It pushes a lot of people onto the streets.
And it reduces diversity in our cities.
Yes.
I mean, the diversity of the population in San Francisco. Bay Area Legal Aid works with a lot of subsidized housing tenants, and we see neighborhoods like the Bayview Hunters Point they're losing their diversity, and San Francisco in general is losing its diversity. And that's a public good. That's something that we respect. We want to live in a diverse society, so it's necessary to have regulations that protect that.
So, Tommy, on June 2nd, the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco rejected this moratorium in the Mission District. What are your thoughts about being able to build new buildings and apartments and condos in the Mission District?
It's an absolutely crazy idea because what's happening in the Mission, I work in the Mission, our office is in the Mission. What's happening is you build luxury condos in a working class neighborhood, and most of the Mission is working class. What happens is the property values go up in that neighborhood. There's more incentive for landlords to evict the tenants who are paying lower rents to move in tenants paying more rent.
And we also see, as Tommy and I were talking about on the way over here, you see more discrimination. You see discrimination against families, you see discrimination against people of color. and things like that. I mean, we have laws in California that protect people, protect families with children. That's a protected class in California, but Tommy was telling me that he sees people coming into his organization all the time telling them that they don't rent to families with children.
Right.
And so when you start to build more high density housing that's luxury housing, you start to push out the existing population. You start to see, you know,
and we know that since 2000, 8,000 Latino families have been pushed out of the Mission. 8,000. And the Mission has always traditionally been a predominantly Latino neighborhood, but it's losing that diversity.
But can't you say that about other pockets of the city too?
Yes,
I
the
mean,
Castro is losing its queer population. I live in the Castro. There was a recent study done by the Merchants Group that shows that the newcomers, people moving into the neighborhood in the last year or so, are predominantly straight. So we are losing diversity. The high rents, the luxury condos, the gentrification and displacement is causing us to lose our diversity.
And so you guys didn't stop there. You gathered signatures for a petition to put this on the ballot. How's that going?
It's going very well. And in fact, they were turning in the signatures this afternoon into the Board of Elections.
So the goal here is to get it on the November?
The November ballot and let the people vote on it since the Board of Supervisors rejected it. But I mean, that day, 800 people from the Mission went to that board meeting, and hundreds of those people testified. And I'm talking about families, teachers, you know, blue-collar workers, working-class people, people who got up there and said, I'm going to lose my neighborhood if you allow more luxury condos to come in and the rents go up and some speculator buys my building and pushes me out. I have nowhere to go. I'm going to have to leave San Francisco. That's the reality. All we want is a moratorium for a period of time so that the city can work with the nonprofits in the Mission, the nonprofit developers, and try to get some of those lots that are available and develop affordable housing rather than market rate housing. That's not much to ask in the middle of a housing crisis. I think it's a perfectly sane idea.
Are you being discriminatory against someone who wants to build a huge skyscraper and have people in it?
I don't consider that discrimination.
That's not a protected class under California or federal law, folks who want to build a big skyscraper.
And honestly, they don't have problems building anywhere in the city.
It's happening all over.
Yes. Well, and you know, they are supposed to add below market rate units because they get a tax credit for adding below market rate units into these luxury condos. But then our clients in general and a lot of low income folks don't have the credit scores to get into those below market rate units because those are highly competitive. So I want to put in a plug for the United Way Bay Area Spark Point Centers, which provide free credit coaches and free financial counseling for low income folks to help people get better self-sufficiency. Before you go rent an apartment, you should know what's on your credit report. And you should make sure your credit score didn't get mixed up with somebody else's information. And so you're entitled to a free credit report every 12 months. And if information's on that is inaccurate, you can get that corrected. So folks should also know what's on their credit report before they go rent an apartment.
Do your homework about the property where you're about to sign the lease. Do that all ahead of time.
And also read your lease, because you are bound by that lease. Believe me, people come into my office all the time and they don't read it. But
they're so excited
read
to
your
get
lease.
the apartment.
Now, there are certain things that get put into leases that are not legal, that can't be enforced. For instance, in the rent ordinance in San Francisco, it explicitly says you cannot waive your rights under the rent ordinance. So if a landlord puts in the lease, for instance, I have the right to raise your rent 5% every year. That can't be enforced because it's not legal, because the rent ordinance clearly says the landlord can only raise the rent that's determined by the rent board each year. But you should read it. You should read it and know what you're signing, because you could be signing something that you don't want to sign.
Okay, Tommy Avicoli Mecca with Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco, and Claire Johnson-Raba with Bay Area Legal Aid. Thank you both.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Tommy. Great points.
Sure.
And we have posted links to both Bay Area Legal Aid and the Housing Rights Committee on KTVU.com. All you have to do is click on web links on our homepage there.